of America, and they don't like most of the Trump voters because they are Americans. And De Niro, how stupid is he without a script? Isn't that amazing? I used to think, wow, that guy's brilliant. But once you take the words away from him, he is so stupid. Then when he goes, impeachment will make America great again, and everybody, how intellectually deprived he is. He's a coke-addled simpleton, without a script. It is hysterical.
Not all of Greg Gutfeld's responses were directed at Robert De Niro. With words sharper than any Hollywood script ever penned, he completely destroyed him. Gutfeld turned what could have been a comeback into a full-fledged public demolition in less than 5 minutes, destroying the tough guy persona De Niro still holds onto like it's the 90s. The wrecking ball. More powerful than any punchline was the combination of unadulterated wit and unvarnished truth. By transforming decades of feigned outrage into a vicious running joke that was hotter than the reviews of De Niro's most recent film office failures, Gutfeld cut through his conceited ego. This debate was not civil. The roast was brutal, and De Niro was left speechless as Gutfeld, equipped with smirks and brutal facts, revealed the hollow thunder that lay beneath his irate snarls.
Last night, an elderly, confused man went missing in New York. Luckily, a band of self-satisfied elitists found him babbling on the street, threw some pants on him, gave him a stage.
Oh my God.
I'm going to say one thing. Trump.
It kills me. Talk about persuasive. Really, I was on the fence about Trump, but then I decided to really listen to one of the great generational leaders of American pop culture. And the clenched fists at the end, that really drove it home. It looked like he was pressing a 2-pound weight in a Jenny Craig commercial.
Oh my God.
Look at it again. It's so cute.
Greg Gutfeld wasn't here to talk. With the ferocity of a verbal hurricane, he charged in. He wasn't trying to be kind. He was prepared to tear off Hollywood's facade of goodness and reveal its glitzy dishonesty to the world. Robert De Niro, the self-described moral compass of the red carpet elite, was standing in the center of that bomb zone. This is the same individual who thinks that wearing a tux and yelling political slogans qualifies as action. However, Gutfeld didn't require velvet ropes, cameras, or flashing lights. Just 3 minutes of blazing common sense, a dagger-like tongue, and a razor-sharp mind. That was enough to make the audience erupt in laughter and turn De Niro's inflated ego into dazzling confetti.
Robert De Niro's 29-year-old child, Aaron, has come out as transgender. When the press asked her for comment, she said, "You talking to they, them?"
If you appreciate this video, please remember to hit the bell symbol and subscribe button for more amazing videos like this one. In typical manner, it all began when Robert De Niro attempted to portray America's indignant conscience once more. Another interview, another dramatic breakdown, another extravagant performance that resembled a frantic Oscar audition gone wrong more than telling the truth. You couldn't help but wonder if he was running for Best Actor or if he was just hoping to get a front row ticket at the DNC. Like a man in rage that Americans would think for themselves without first seeking his permission. He was there, spouting hatred.
And the star of Dirty Grandpa, Robert De Niro, getting censored by The View after raging like a bull who saw a red MAGA hat.
And they might think that it's going to make their life better, or they just want to, excuse my French, literally, it's almost like he wants to do the worst that he could possibly do to show this country. His
Jesse, I find that he's smartest when they drop his audio.
Gutfeld then arrived, calm, collected, and sporting that signature grin that virtually cried out, "The internet is going to blow up." He began with a smooth jab that was so painful. De Niro isn't acting as much these days. The audience burst out, laughing, and he's essentially just a loud Yelp review dressed in a suit. It was one of those crazy, all-caps tirades about a crooked coffee lid at Starbucks, and it wasn't the helpful kind of Yelp review either. Gutfeld was far from finished, yet the panel howled. He continued to burn, roasting with surgical accuracy and no mercy at all. Each word was more incisive, hilarious, and devastating than the one before it. transforming Dyro's anger into a wealth of amusement.
They can't see it themselves, and they're not surrounded by people telling them that they have a problem, and they lack self-awareness because everybody either tells them they're wonderful or wants to sell. So he has no clue what he's doing, and he's upset over the emotional nature. His anger is emotional about Trump. It's nothing practical.
It was captivating to observe. The once great legend Dyro, who created memorable and nuanced personalities, has now diminished himself to a single worn-out role. As though the weather owed him a personal apology, the irate elderly guy was shouting at the clouds. However, this went beyond simple insult humor. Gutfeld had a mirror in his hand. What America witnessed in return was achingly real and amusing. The once cool, untouchable movie star had become that one uncle with a strong opinion who spoils Thanksgiving by praising MSNBC as if it were a message from God. Gutfeld didn't stop there either. "Look, I love Dyro and Taxi Driver," he replied with a laugh. Although I adored him in Goodfellas, his most impressive performance may have been persuading us that he was more than just the angry guy with the clenched fists. Now, whenever Dyro speaks, it seems as though a high school theater club that has recently learned about politics is parodying him. Gutfeld dropped his voice for the kill as he leaned in. According to this individual, he wants to strike Trump in the face. Strike Trump? From a man who hasn't actually delivered a punch since its imitation required 6 stuntmen and a CGI budget. The crowd blew up. Hollywood heard about this knockout.
Of course, the real story is how accusations of Trump's nutty behavior always ends up with the accusers acting nuttier. De Niro calls Trump crazy as he goes crazier. Adam Schiff calls Trump a liar as he makes up quotes. Dems talk about undermining institutions as they try to undermine an election. But when asked for reasons why Trump shouldn't be president, all Bobby had were sputtering F-bombs. His resistance had run out of script.
And let's face it, Dyro's shoulder would most likely immediately file for retirement if he ever attempted to throw a punch these days. The crowd in the studio burst out laughing. Gutfeld simply shrugged as if the truth had just slipped out of his mouth. "Let's talk about real courage," he replied, smiling mischievously before becoming a little serious. With supporters cheering him on like he just cured cancer every time he throws a F-bomb, Dyro is out here yelling against a president who isn't even in office. It's not bravery. It's self-righteous outbursts mixed with political karaoke. The most absurd aspect is that the media enthusiastically embraces it as though he were a revolutionary hero, as though he suddenly becomes the Shivara of Beverly Hills by yelling the same things as every affluent actor. Please. Wearing $4,000. Designer shoes that are more expensive than most people's rent, and shouting at a teleprompter is Dyro's concept of resistance. Gutfeld simply smirked at the ridiculous spectacle that was taking place in front of him and shook his head.
It's a good time to reflect on how Americans fought and died so that we may enjoy the freedoms guaranteed to us by a democratic government. A government that, as President Lincoln said, of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. Under Trump, this kind of government will perish from the earth. I don't mean to scare you. No, wait, maybe I do mean to scare you. If Trump returns to the White House, you can kiss these freedoms goodbye.
And let's face it, Dyro's shoulder would most likely immediately file for retirement if he ever attempted to throw a punch these days. The crowd in the studio burst out laughing. Gutfeld simply shrugged as if the truth had just slipped out of his mouth. "Let's talk about real courage," he replied, smiling mischievously before becoming a little serious. With supporters cheering him on like he just cured cancer every time he throws a F-bomb, Dyro is out here yelling against a president who isn't even in office. It's not bravery. It's self-righteous outbursts mixed with political karaoke. The most absurd aspect is that the media enthusiastically embraces it as though he were a revolutionary hero, as though he suddenly becomes the Shivara of Beverly Hills by yelling the same things as every affluent actor, please. Wearing $4,000, designer shoes that are more expensive than most people's rent, and shouting at a teleprompter is Dyro's concept of resistance. Gutfeld simply smirked at the ridiculous spectacle that was taking place in front of him and shook his head.
Idiot is the president. The guy is a fool. Our government today, with the prompting of our baby-in-chief, has in chief, I call him.
That's some reliable source you got there. This is what moms call bad language, or what producers call great TV. The plan, get an irrational figure at peak derangement and goad him into snapping. It's like cabaret for the chronically obsessed.
Niro no longer speaks much. Like a raccoon battling a leaf blower, he complains in every utterance. He acts as though you've declared war on his espresso machine when you ask him a straightforward inquiry. Then, in a stunning conclusion, Gutfeld revealed the truth aloud. Trump hasn't made Robert Darrow upset. People no longer act as though his viewpoint mattered, which infuriates him. He is resentful because he knows in his heart that the limelight has dimmed. He peaked in the 1990s, and Sean Penn's other intentions are the sole reason he is currently on political panels. Gutfeld grinned and leaned back as if he had just mopped the floor with his opponent. Darrow believed he could enter the political arena and deliver powerful blows. However, you can bet that he will yell at a camera, storm off the set, and demand retribution if he ever witnesses this takedown. Meanwhile, someone will silently Google Gutfeld's ratings next to his previous 5 box office failures.
Flops.
Robert De Niro graced the knitting circle in hell known as The View, where he tried to link random thoughts into a sentence. Joy was there to wind him up, since he's played some of the most unredeemable characters.
You have played some of the most really unredeemable characters. Travis Bickle. Travis Bickle was a psychopathic taxi driver. Jake LaMotta, who used to beat his wife, and he was in The Raging Bull. Is Trump worse than they are?
To me, he is. He has no understanding that I can see of the outside world other than anything around him. He has no idea of what his purpose in life is, as the president should be, and that is to pull the country together, to be for the people, to heal wounds, not to open them up and pour salt on them.
De Niro clearly has thought about this, more so than his career. His choice of roles is now down to cinnamon and lobster.
Gutfeld didn't have to yell or become angry. With scathing humor and unquestionable truth, he destroyed Darrow the old-fashioned way. That's precisely the irony for which Darrow was once renowned. However, Hollywood's best writers did not write the script this time. It was shaped by harsh, unforgiving reality, and the star wasn't Darrow. The punchline was him. The most outrageous aspect is that Darrow genuinely thinks he poses a threat. Not the kind who went through Twitter and became a revolutionary, but the kind that portrayed criminals on television. Gutfeld grinned and leaned closer. I understand. Darrow aspires to be important. Now, though, time is the only thing he's fighting against. And perhaps the want to shout at clouds. Once upon a time, this man insisted on artistic standards. However, he is currently starring in unasked-for sequels. Additionally, he points the finger at politics rather than the obvious when his films fail. His products are just no longer being purchased.
Anymore.
Instead, he's obsessed with these hypothetical what-ifs that Trump is going to keep hold on to power.
Not because it was
None of these things
mean,
are true.
but because it was accurate. The panel couldn't stop laughing. Then Gutfeld changed direction. Although not entirely serious, it has that tone of mock seriousness that shouts, "A truth bomb is incoming." Darrow continues to accuse Trump of being a bully. A threat to democracy, according to Gutfeld. However, it appears that his entire political strategy consists of growling and threatening to hit people in interviews as if someone had woken him up too early. When it comes to moral authority, Gutfeld joked, "Then I'm a vegan life coach." The crowd burst out laughing. He wasn't done yet. He presented the calculations. The stinging, funny kind. Because people no longer revere CNN, the man who made his fortune by portraying rebels, gangsters, and rule breakers is now clutching his pearls. When he said the last line, Gutfeld laughed heartily, and the audience was enthralled.
I read that article that you sent me about the last nights of John Belushi and how De Niro was there and just basically partied with him and then split. And it's just like, that's now I just think of him as a really stupid guy.
Well, he's got The Irishman coming out. That looks pretty good.
I'm gonna go see it.
Yeah, we should go see it.
Once portraying mobsters who dealt with their adversaries with cold precision, Robert Darrow is now out there threatening to attack people in broadcast tirades as though it will save America. To be honest, I've heard more difficult critiques of wet tacos in Yelp reviews. Let's face it, we all appreciate his legacy because we're discussing acting. However, it feels like seeing someone dispute with a chair these days when Darrow appears in interviews. Yes, there is passion, but there is also misunderstanding, and the chair is winning somehow. As he continued, Gutfeld's face glowed with wild laughter. Darrow speaks as though he were cast in the movie Angry Man Saves America. However, each tirade sounds like a clip from Meet the Three that was cut out. the midlife crisis. Even his political supporters are muttering, "Bob, perhaps read a book or take a sleep." Simply put an end to the lengthy interviews. Gutfeld was not angry. Roasting Niro is easy, so he was doing well. In a way, it's a competitive sport.
Time to reflect on how Americans fought and died so that we may enjoy the freedoms guaranteed to us by a democratic government. A government that, as President Lincoln said, of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. Under Trump, this kind of government will perish from the earth. I don't mean to scare you. No, wait, maybe I do mean to scare you. If Trump returns to the White House, you can kiss these freedoms.
Watching a grown guy have a tantrum and call it Shakespeare is like watching slow motion exercise. Then all of a sudden, the last blow was delivered by Greg Gutfeld. It was a verbal blow that stuck, not just a hit. Greg remarked that Niro believes he is America's conscience. However, he isn't. He's the voicemail you ignore, the commercial you turn off, or the grandfather who keeps telling the same tale over dinner. Now, however, he is pleading for applause while sporting a resistance t-shirt. The reality was harsh. It was not politics that ruined Niro. He was destroyed because he equated fame with the right to remain unopposed, loudness with insight, and rage with intelligence. But Greg had more lucidity than any slurred monologue Bob had ever given, and his punchlines were sharper than Niro's latest assessments. Niro arrived brimming with passion. Gutfeld responded with humor, accuracy, and harsh, unyielding facts. Greg wasn't the only one that was knocked out in the end. It was the actual world. Sadly, Niro didn't witness it.